On the corner of Huxley Street in Oldham is the end of terrace home where Luke Brooks lived, a 27-year-old who died last October. While the house is now empty, his mum is adamant that mould and damp here made him ill. She told the inquest what she'd said to the council. "For God's sake, will you please get us out of that house before someone dies?" And a couple of months later, somebody did, she added. She said she didn't know that mould could kill until she saw the case of 2-year-old Awab Ishak in neighbouring Rochdale. His death was a direct result of the damp inside his family's flat. The Brooks' home in Oldham was a private rental. The landlords were there cleaning it today, and they allowed us in. Because they too are due to give evidence to the coroner later this week, they didn't want to speak on camera. They told us they will give a full account when they give evidence on Wednesday. The coroner has asked everyone not to speculate on the cause of Luke's death. Her inquest will examine the evidence on Huxley Street. But the problem of homes that are unfit to live in is the hazardous edge of the UK's housing crisis. The charity Shelter say tenants who are privately renting are often scared to seek help.
What we've found in research is that 3/4 of private renters have experienced poor conditions, issues like mould in their homes in the past year. And of those, 1 in 4 were too afraid to ask their landlord to do anything about it because they were scared that they would be evicted as a result.
Reform of the rental sector in England is passing through Parliament. It's designed to improve the whole system. But this inquest is about Luke Brooks and his family. As yet, his death is unexplained. The inquest will run for 5 days. Tom Parmenter, Sky News, Greater Manchester.
A family in Parkchester has been living with dangerous levels of mold in their apartment since September, and they're now fed up with the lack of help they've received. News 12 The Bronx reporter Jacqueline Latanza visited the Unionport Road apartment.
After moving into their Unionport Road apartment in August 2014, MD Islam and his family have experienced so many different problems, and the latest is mold. The family says it first appeared in September and has been spreading in a bedroom that they no longer can use.
By this time in my home, bedroom, so many furniture is damaged, and my TV also is not working.
Islam said he contacted Parkchester Preservation Management and the city's Department of Housing and Preservation Development, and they haven't done anything sufficient.
So many times by phone first, from September, October, November, and December, I contacted every week, and so many people, that means their inspector came and go. Just they came and visit and then they leave the apartment. Nothing happened, no initiative for repair.
Eventually, he took the matter to court in January, but even that didn't solve his problem.
Nobody helping me basically, so court also give the order for landlord, not for me.
And the mold is so bad that it's affecting the family's health. Mr. Islam showed me paperwork that says from July to December, he took off 140 hours from work to tend to the medical needs of himself, his wife, and their 3.5-year-old son.
He's sick so many times, my wife also sick, me also sick. Last few months we went to emergency hospital 5-6 times and regular doctor every month, few times.
With fear of this mold seriously affecting their well-being, the Islam family remains desperate for help. In Parkchester, Jacqueline Latanza, News 12 The Bronx.
Jacqueline, thank you. And we reached out to the Parkchester Preservation Management, but the department declined to comment on this matter.
The flash floods that hit the state have now receded, but they've left behind a messy legacy. Homeowners are now dealing with water damage as well as mold. Tonight, consumer investigator Steve Spraccia gets answers about how best to deal with that moldy mess.
Once you've been hit by floodwaters, cleanup becomes crucial, and anything that's wet can be a breeding ground for mold.
How quickly can mold begin to form?
They say mold can begin growing within 48 hours if the conditions are right.
Before mold becomes obvious outside of the walls, it will breed behind them.
You won't see it, but you might start noticing a very musty odor in your house.
Even if you've only got 3 or 4 inches of water in your house, drywall acts like a wick, sucking up the water several feet above the flow line, even wetting the insulation behind the wall.
In many cases, you know, some of the drywall is going to have to come out and be repaired.
Wall-to-wall carpet needs to go too.
The carpet is wet, but also the pad underneath it is just like a sponge.
If the mold is in just a very small area, you may want to tackle it yourself, but you need to take precautions.
When you're working with it, you're going to be stirring it up to a certain degree.
So, wear an N95 rated mask or respirator, but remember they're almost impossible to find these days. Wear long pants, shirt, gloves, boots, and goggles. Dispose of all porous items which have been in the water for 48 hours or more. And use a commercial mold control solution.
Some folks think, oh, I just throw a little bleach on it and I can get rid of the mold right away. But bleach really doesn't cure it, does it?
No, and bleach doesn't. It actually feeds mold. It will take out the stain of mold, but bleach is about 80% water, so it doesn't kill the mold spore, and the water feeds the spore.
You should also never paint over mold because that doesn't kill it, it just hides it temporarily.
Large mold problems like this require a professional to come in, seal off the area, and do a complete remediation. You want to know more? Well, the EPA has a complete mold guide, which I've linked to in my web story. Working for you, I'm consumer investigator Steve Spracia.
Wanda and Cameron, we first became aware of this problem when a viewer sent us an email saying they felt that the possible mold issue here in Surrey County was being swept under the rug. Well, today, Surrey County officials say there is some sort of problem in the 4 courtrooms here at the courthouse, but they are doing everything they can to fix the problem.
We've tried to be above board with it. I mean, we're trying to find out what it is.
There's a problem somewhere inside these vents in the Surrey County Courthouse. 4 courtrooms all showing some sort of residue. It concerned someone so much they contacted the state's OSHA office.
It was, reporting that there had been a complaint about mold issues in the Surrey County Judicial Center, and ECS was contacted. We asked them to come in and do an assessment.
Crews were brought in to test humidity levels in all 4 rooms.
68%, I think, in one of the courtrooms, and another one was like 65, and a couple of them was in like 58, 55, so it varied.
Facilities Director Don Mitchell says 50% is considered good. So now dehumidifiers are up and running.
We think a lot of it's dust and debris, but we won't be sure until we get the test results back from the lab.
There's also a chance it could be mold, and that would not be good news for this building built back in 2002. But if it is,
we'll have it properly cleaned under directions from our engineer.
We will do everything we can to correct it once we find out what we're dealing with.
And there was also a similar issue here at the courthouse last summer. In that issue, it was determined to be just debris and dust from the air system. Now, I also talked to OSHA today. They say they believe the county is doing everything they can to rectify this problem, so they have now closed the case. Reporting live in Surrey County tonight, Erica Miller, WXII 12 News.
A minority business owner in Louisville started out with a simple goal: grow fresh, local produce. But less than a year after opening her store, she encountered this, a building full of mold, and that was just the beginning. She walked us through what's left of her storefront, sharing her journey to overcome adversity, health battles, and hatred to plant new roots.
We came in and we're like, this is perfect. There's a corner spot, there's a garden.
What started with a round of applause has now turned quiet.
You do a good job to make your customers feel safe and comfortable and think that you can fix it.
Louisville's garden girl, Whitney Powers, looking at the few items she still has left inside her Oak Street storefront.
Devastation is not a big enough word. But I'm definitely devastated.
Less than a year at the location, Powers is being forced to find a new home for her business.
I'm leaving heartbroken, traumatized, and with mold poisoning.
She says she first noticed the mold over the summer.
It's pretty bad.
With each rainfall,
it rains in my store, trash cans of water at a time.
It doesn't just pour.
It floods at least 4 inches.
From the floor to the ceiling and the basement down below.
It's bad.
The costly problem silently growing all around her.
I mean, it's everywhere.
For months, Powers says she asked her landlord for a solution.
And I asked him in June, and in November, we still weren't fixing the mold. He said he would, and I believed him because I thought, who wouldn't want a tenant that's bringing up the neighborhood, right, to stay?
But instead of answers, Powers says he tried to raise her rent nearly $2,000 per month. And she says the problems didn't stop there.
And I'm traumatized.
Claiming some tenants were upset she got rid of stray cats when cleaning up the garden area, hurling racial and homophobic insults aimed at her and her staff.
At one point, there was a comment of, we don't want any and in our building. They meant it because those comments were followed up by harassment. Someone started to send kitty litter to my home address, like boxes and boxes at a time.
All of it taking a toll, she says, on her physical health.
I went to a doctor and she was like, I'm going to test you for mold poisoning. And she did, and sure enough, I had mold poisoning like this whole time. Yeah, that goes too.
So she decided to pack up and leave.
The fight was too difficult.
A fight her landlord says should have played out in court and not in the media, and is all clearly laid out in her lease, saying through an attorney, quote, "This is a landlord-tenant issue. The parties' rights are governed by a written commercial lease. Tenant is not being treated differently than any other commercial tenant who is in default of her lease obligations." And that, quote, "We will address tenants' claims in the courtroom if necessary." Powers now plans to lease a space at the Louisville Central Community Center while she works to find a new permanent home.
We'll be doing meals for seniors that will be Medicaid reimbursable, and we'll also be doing food that'll go to grocers and small convenience stores throughout the city.
In the meantime, the garden girl has until the 1st of the month to get the rest of her belongings.
I'm getting out of here, and hopefully they fix it before anyone else comes in here.
As she branches out to start anew.
In a sense, I'm glad that it's over, but it's unfortunate that it had to be like, it shouldn't have been like this.